we've been your job search besties and helped you in some way, there's a cool way you can support the show. Shout us a virtual coffee.
We get a huge kick out of reading all of your success stories. Head to buymeacoffee.com/interviewboss and shout us a cuppa.
If you keep us caffeinated, we can keep the content coming.
It's almost like it doesn't go through your brain properly.
Yeah, you're not thinking and actually
Constructing a sentence.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Interview Boss. My name is Emma. I'm a radio journalist who's teamed up with my sister to give you advice, inspiration and support when you're looking for a new job. Sarah is a HR and recruitment professional, and together we're excited to give you all the tips, tricks and behind the scenes knowledge to help you in your career.
Hey, Em, and welcome back, everyone. It's time for our favourite part of the podcast. It's our Shoot Your Shot, Shout Out. And we celebrate you guys, our listeners, who've gone out there, you've shot your shot, you've tried something, you've taken our advice, you've landed a big win, a little win, or a new job or a promotion, and we are giving you a shout out. So this week, the shout out goes to Roxane, who bought us 10 coffees. Oh my God, these shout outs are so generous.
So kind. She said, "This podcast has been such a gift. I found it nearly a year ago when I was prepping for a second interview for a big job that I really wanted. Hearing logical, practical and actionable advice from two women was not only refreshing, but the tips and insights you provide in your episodes were so relevant and useful. The way you pair interview and work advice with humour and sisterly banter is absolutely addicting. I've listened to nearly every episode, many of them multiple times over, soaking in all the information and laughing along. I also went through the Interview Academy for a little extra practice and focused work to ensure I was as prepared as possible. Although the big job I was interviewing for didn't work out, I left that interview feeling more confident than ever before. I knew that if they didn't pick me, it was because I wasn't the right fit, not because I failed to share my experience. The advice you share about preparing your About Me story and the best bits have been the biggest game changers for me. After searching a little more, I landed an interview for another job. I took in all the episodes I could and revisited the Interview Academy materials. Ultimately, can you hear him?
I can hear the honking now. Emma has a goose next door. We're just pausing for the goose to stop its honking.
Does my head in. Okay, where was I up to?
What's your biggest challenge in recording the podcast? There's a goose that lives next door.
Yes. Telling me to prepare your About Me story and best bits were the biggest game changers. After searching a little more, I landed an interview for another job. I took in all the episodes I could and revisited the Interview Academy materials. Ultimately, all of your wisdom and my prep helped me land the job. It's closer to home, pays better, and is a big next step in my career. And not only did you help me land this new job, but you again came in clutch with your advice about how to best leave a job, even in a toxic environment. I wrapped up my final weeks at work by prepping all the transition documents, recording videos of processes for future personnel, and providing constructive feedback when asked. All in all, I really don't think I would have made it through this job search as successfully without you. I appreciate the time and dedication you invest in this podcast so much. Thank you for being strong female voices to lean on. Listening from California, Roxane."
Oh, incredible. I love that she specifically wanted to hear this from women. I relate. And I specifically try and make our examples, women related, just because I feel like that's just our demographic. Your demographic will always tend to be people similar to you. And because we're two women and two sisters, we tend to attract female listeners. And I love that.
And there's plenty of men around too. And we love you all. And thanks for being here.
We do. It's just people like to hear themselves. And I love that she went through the Interview Academy and then, hey, I did the interview so well, didn't get the job though. Great thing about the Academy, go back through it again, refresh a couple of bits. You've already done most of the work, but you can just refresh as soon as you've got something new because you get lifetime access. Handy. How good's that?
So true. As always, if you liked one of our episodes, used a tip that we sent you, or want to request an episode on your conundrum specifically, kindly follow us on Instagram and slide into our DMs, and we could choose you next week.
So this episode is inspired by me doing more interviews recently and the discussions that we've been having about people in those interviews and kind of how they go. We recently did a big bulk recruitment process, and I think people tend to do this a little bit more when they're really junior. So we've seen a lot of it. It's scripting themselves, overly scripting so that you sound a bit robotic and like I can hear that you're reading and it's just a little bit off-putting. So we're going to talk all about scripting yourself and why we don't think that you should have a script.
When you say reading, like they've memorized it?
Well, if it's over the phone, you're actually probably reading.
Oh, right. Over the phone.
Yeah. Well, this is in all kind of parts of the job search. So if you're in a phone screen, like that first kind of quick phone chat type scenario, the great thing is that you can have all of your content. Even on an online interview, I think you can have like stuff right next to the camera.
Who in their right mind is answering their phone screen ready to go with this stuff? Most people I know, you always get caught off guard on a phone screen. You're in the supermarket or something, you answer your phone and then you end up having an informal 5-minute chat.
I know. Well, I don't like putting people in that position. And so any company that I've ever worked at, we schedule them because I don't like catching people off guard.
Oh, well, you're just giving them the freedom to do it. Catch them off guard. Then
yeah, I know, but then
robot mode.
This might help people understand kind of, not everyone's perspective, but at least my perspective, is set people up for success and then you can get the information from that. So if I've booked you in, if you've booked a time, you've chosen it, I've called you at the scheduled time and you're still not really prepared and you can't remember what the job was and you don't have any questions for me or whatever, there's just a general lack of enthusiasm kind of vibe, well, then that's on you. But it won't be because I've caught you off guard because I've taken that off the table.
Yeah, that's true. I'm kidding. I think it's great that you don't put people on the spot.
Yeah. Also, if you do get caught in the supermarket, ask if you can call them back. Please do that. Just like, oh, do you mind if I call you back in 10 minutes? Quickly go through the checkout and then go sit in your car, do a quick bring up of some notes or whatever. Easy.
Yeah, you definitely can do that. I would be the type to panic and just roam the dairy aisle while talking about my experience.
Yeah. Me too. I know. I don't take my own advice.
So tell me why people might be tempted to script themselves.
I think people get worried about being nervous and being caught off guard, and so they want to be prepared. I think it's good reasons why people end up scripting themselves. They're wanting to be prepared. They're wanting to put effort into their job interview prep. That's all the things that we talk about. They want to sound professional and polished. I think that's another one. We talk about buzzwords a lot. I think that this really comes into being scripted. They want to sound smart, and so they think that if they just talk off the cuff like a human, that somehow means that they won't sound smart enough.
Or they might use too many ums or something.
Oh, yeah, worrying about that. Or feeling like you need to have the perfect answer. I think that can come from a bit of a misconception about job interviews where there's like this series of words that's going to unlock you getting the job if you say this secret phrase or whatever. It's just this idea that there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And so if you feel like it has to be perfect, then I can see why you might want to get every word kind of ready. And I think people don't want to ramble. I think if you feel like you go off track or you get a bit lost and you don't want to get rambly and you talk too much, maybe you might want to script yourself as well so that you don't forget stuff and get off track. It's good reasons.
Now, what is so wrong about robot mode? What don't you like about it when someone's going into rehearsed robot mode?
Well, let me do 2 different things and you see if you can tell which one I'm reading for.
Okay.
Listen to both of these. I think I'd be a great fit because I've managed some really large projects and worked on some really large scale types of things. But I'm really looking forward to having a bit more of an impact and coming back to a more local level where I can really get hands on. And I think this role sounds like the right place to do that.
Okay.
Okay. Version 1.
Nice.
I think I'd be a great fit because I've spent the last 5 years managing projects and I've had a lot of success leading teams and meeting tight deadlines. For example, in my last role, I led a project that was delivered 2 weeks ahead of schedule, saving the company significant resources. I love finding creative solutions to challenges and I'd be thrilled to bring that energy to your team.
Second one's a script.
How can you tell, do you reckon? Like, what is it that you can be like, she sounds like she's reading?
I think the pacing naturally when you're reading something, you go into like reader mode. Like I do it when I'm reading out the shout out because I go into radio mode where I'm just reading compared to when you and I are just talking.
It's almost like it doesn't go through your brain properly.
Yeah. You're not thinking and actually
constructing a sentence.
You're not believing the words you're saying. You're just on autopilot reading them. Also, there's some hints in the words like,
yes,
for example, compared to just saying like, yeah, I've worked on, like some really big projects.
Like blah, blah, blah. Yeah. You wouldn't say, for example, like in your day-to-day life. It's a kind of an odd way to phrase something versus when you're writing, for example, is exactly the way that you would kind of write that. But if you were better at scripting something the way that you would sound, then this wouldn't be a problem. And I think that's one of the things that goes with this. It's is the problem the script or is the problem that you never scripted the way that you would actually talk? I think if you scripted it the way you talked, then it wouldn't be as bad of a thing. I think you could still tell that you were maybe reading with that pacing, and it would still sound like, I think there's almost a case of if you've practiced it so well that you know it word by word. Let's say it's in the actual interview, so you haven't got the paper in front of you, like it's word for word in your brain. Well, you've done it so many times to get to that point that it's almost boring now. Like you're bored to hear your own words coming out of your mouth. So
this is why dot points, because you can still give yourself the help, but it's just in point form so that you can still use your loose colloquial language around the dot points, but you're getting across the main focus.
Yeah. And you can even practice like certain words that you want to use, or like large scale projects. Like that might be something that you want to mention exactly that way, large scale projects, rather than like, oh, big projects or whatever. Like that's the kind of thing that you can prep, but don't make it a whole sentence or a whole couple of sentences.
Interview Academy might be the perfect thing you're looking for. Interview Academy is a course Sarah has been working on after delivering hundreds of interview coaching sessions and getting incredible results.
But unfortunately, I'm only one gal living in an Aussie time zone who works a day job, and all of that mean I can't help everyone one-on-one, which drove me crazy.
So for over a year, Sarah's been working on turning all of those amazing lessons into an on-demand, step-by-step interview prep course. We hold your hand through the entire thing,
and you can do it at home in your own time and get instant access right now. Check it out at interviewboss.com.au/interview-academy. The link is in the show notes. So I think the other thing that happens when you go into robot mode, and I do think it's like robot mode, you sound a bit robotic. You've lost a bit of personality, I really think. I do this a lot with my coaching clients because I ask them to prep a bit of a tell me about yourself or some of their interview answers. And I can tell because I can't keep up, my typing can't keep up with their talking because they're so much faster when they're reading versus when they're talking off the cuff. And also it just doesn't come across with as much personality as well. And so I think that means that it's harder to connect with the interviewer.
Which is the whole purpose of the interview.
Yes, which they're trying to get to know you and you're just kind of going pre-prepared from the stuff that you've come up with. I've had this situation quite a few times where you're getting every question you've got. Yeah, I would love to tell you about that. So an example of when I've done, like it's just this overly kind of polished version of the person that you're getting. And it kind of feels like you haven't met the real person, if that makes sense. And so I've had this where I've tried to break through that and tried to be like, okay, cool. Yeah, thanks for that really great answer. How did you feel about that scenario though? Like, what did you really think? Or like, oh, what happened next? Or just tried to get beyond the fully scripted thing and just go some back and forth just to see a little bit more of their personality and what they're like and how they think, for example, to just actually get to know them, which again is the whole point of the interview. And they resist and they repeat their rehearsed stuff. So I think that tells me that when someone's in this mode of wanting to script, they find it very, very hard to drop that facade because there must be some beliefs there that like, oh, that's wrong. You don't want to say anything real. You don't want to act like a person. Like everything has to sound perfect. You have to go back to, well, I would just, no, I always adapt. I was never worried about it. I always made sure that and you're like, yeah, but come on, you're a bit stressed, right? No, I always, like, you just think, come on, level with me here. And it can be very frustrating. It means that you feel like you didn't meet them.
And yeah, I guess it limits the flow of conversation. And where normally you could get into a really great back and forth, you're just talking to a bit of a brick wall in that they didn't account for that back and forth on the script, so it's not going to happen.
Or they go back to another part of the script kind of thing and repeat what they've kind of already told you. That can be a bit tough. I also think if you're doing this because of nerves, I think ironically it can make it worse. Have you ever scripted something and then you lose your place?
Yeah.
What happens when you can't think of the next word?
Then you just go into factory reset mode.
You panic. You're like, I can't think of any words anymore. They've all left my brain.
Yeah, no thoughts. Smooth brain.
Because again, you've been kind of just like doing the talking bit and your brain is just not doing anything. When you're just rehearsing something from memory, your brain's not involved. And then suddenly when you forget a word or a sentence, your brain has to just suddenly come back online and be like, what are we doing? Where are we? I don't know. I can't remember what's next. You haven't remembered the thoughts or the ideas or the connections between them. You've just been remembering the words and the sounds and what your mouth has to do. And so you're going to get more stuck, I think.
Yeah, you can also just sound super rigid and, I don't know, just not authentic.
It can feel like, does this person actually know what they're saying? Or are they just reading? Like, you can almost get the idea that have they prepared this themselves and they're just being a bit like rigid? Or did somebody else write this? Or it's AI or it's something like that and they don't even know what they're really saying. Like, I had this one interview that I feel like maybe I've mentioned before because it really was quite memorable, where it was an online interview and the person sounded like they were reading, like straight away. You just, God, tell us a little bit about you. They sounded like they were reading. And I was like, hold on, that just sounded really familiar. And I pulled up their resume, scrolled back to the top. They were reading their about section on their resume, word for word for word. And it was in front of us. And I'm like, the assumption is that I have this in front of me, right? Like, how did they not know that I would work out that they were just reading that? Like, it almost feels disengaged, disconnected. Like, I couldn't be bothered to reword this for you, so I'm just going to read what I've already written before. Or I don't know what any of this means because I had someone else write it for me. So I don't actually know how to discuss it in any other way than exactly what's here. So I'm going to rehearse it directly from what's written.
Yeah, it's your life. You should know it and be able to easily talk about it in conversation.
Yes, which is one of the reasons why I don't super love when people have someone do their resume and they don't even really familiarise themselves with themselves. Like, I think you need to know what's in there and how to explain it.
So if scripting isn't a good idea, what should we do instead?
Well, it's our best bits framework, really. Like, go listen to our episode about best bits and come up with your best bits. You can do a lot of prep and you can practice, and we recommend practicing. We've got a whole episode about practicing that we did recently. I think there's 2 of them. We did how to practice yourself and how to practice with someone else. So you can practice and do it over and over. I just don't want you to have exact words written out of exactly what you want to say for your intro and also for your interview answers and your stories. So you want to have a bit of structure. So it's our situation, what I did, end result. You can use star, you can use whatever you want. Come up with those stories, prep them out so that you've got the bullet points, like Emma said, of what you want to talk about. Well, what do people say? Dot points or bullet points? Did we talk about this once? It's not.
The Americans
dot
say
points
bullet
is
points.
Australian. It's bullet points. Well, anyway, either way, come up with your points and use that to practice. Use that to go through them so that you know what you want to say. You're staying on track, but it's going to sound natural every time.
And practice enough that you feel comfortable with the content, but not overly rehearsed. The words can be different every time, but you're saying the same thing. You're getting the message across, but you might use different words to do that. Be adaptable. Get your family to practice asking you different questions that you use the same example for. Treat it as a two-way discussion, like you would with just anyone else that you're having a normal conversation with at work, in the street.
And also with our best bits, you do have to adapt them because we talk about that all the time. Like, you've got a story about a time when something went wrong. If they say, tell me about a mistake and what did your boss do? Well, that might not have originally been in the story. So you've got the story ready, you know the content of what happened. You might have to add in a couple of details about what your boss did. So you're going to have to adapt based on what the question is. The story is largely the same, but it has to be adapted. So scripting it is not going to be that helpful because you're going to be like, oh, I didn't prepare for this exact question written this exact way. What am I going to do?
Also, highlight the key points that you want to cover, but allow room for spontaneity. Something might actually just pop up based on what they prompted you on. And then you're like, oh, actually, so glad you mentioned that, because you don't want to be so rigid that you don't allow for those good moments. And also, just remember, we're prioritizing connecting over sounding perfect.
Yes. And communicating. I think that's the word. It's connection, but it's also communication. You want to actually be understood, not to sound good. Catch yourself if you see something or you read something and you're like, oh, that sounds good. Sounds good for what? Sounds good
for a textbook.
Is just like, yeah, it sounds good is chosen good words or whatever, or like someone's delivered it really professionally, like a newsreader. Like, what's the content? What's the message? What decision might you make from that information? It's not about sounding good. We want to be good.
Forget about sounding good.
So, ditch the script. Thanks so much for listening to Interview Boss. If you like hearing our Aussie accents and our award-winning podcast, hit that follow button in Apple or Spotify, or better yet, tell someone else about this show. That's how we can hit the charts, win more awards, and help even more people. For more advice and some fun skits and savable content, check us out on Instagram @InterviewBoss and chuck us a follow. Can you believe we started Interview Boss in 2021?
Not really. It's insane. That's a lot of episodes and a lot of hours of talking.
Oh my gosh, it is. And if you're scrolling through all of our episodes, you might scroll straight past something that you really, really needed.
Yes, we're always getting messages from people asking us to do an episode on something, and I'm like, we already have.
So we've put together playlists to help you find the episodes that are exactly what you need, suited to your situation.
They're all categorized. If you're applying for jobs, we have episodes about resumes, cover letters, job ads. If you've been offered your dream job, we have episodes on resigning, exit interviews, and how to impress at your new company.
And we even have a very special playlist that's very popular for if you have an interview coming up immediately and you need just our most recommended hard-hitting episodes between now and then.
For all our last-minute listeners. It's all there for you. You can browse by category and check out all the playlists at interviewboss.com.au/podcast.